What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about something we don't normally talk about and something that a lot of you have asked me about, which is permaculture. Let's go. So a lot of you know that I don't really prescribe to the idea, or at least the complete idea, of permaculture as it pertains to our vegetable garden. And I do say that I like permaculture, but the pros and cons of each kind of come into play, and I have to assess what really works for me. And what works for me doesn't always work for you, and what works for you doesn't always work for me. And a lot of people want me to start talking about permaculture. It's definitely become kind of the more kind of up and coming popular way of gardening. As people have less and less time, the ideas of permaculture become more appealing to a lot of people, because once you establish them, they take very little work, because permaculture essentially is taking all of the components of Mother Nature, like an established forest, and saying that, Mother Nature does not need us to take care of it, it takes care of itself. And it's putting those systems in place that just allow more of a natural ecosystem to take hold. And that's, that's wonderful. But when you're talking about an all annual garden, well, without the exception of, strawberries and a few perennial herbs, most of our garden is annuals, things like tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, what have you. And we don't have a whole lot of shade cover and stuff like that coming from trees. Those are planted in our orchard. And so we don't typically talk a lot about permaculture when it comes to our vegetable garden. But as I've begun to look at our orchard, I always look at ways that I can improve my food production without increasing my workload. I always talk all the time about this, because it's so important that as you grow your garden, you don't grow your workload, because if you do, eventually you're going to hit a point where you're going to be working full-time for your garden. You won't have any time for friends, family, yourself, or work, and there won't be any balance there. So when it comes to permaculture, I do love that component. And I wanted to kind of sit down and assess how I'm going to incorporate permaculture into my home orchard. And what I stumbled upon was actually a really good concept of seasonal use. And we see this a lot with biointensive farms. There's actually one not too far from here, located about an hour away. And I was looking at what they were doing, and they did something that was really incredible. I believe the farm is called overachieving? Overbach. Of course, it's a name. I thought it was over something. I thought it was like overarching farms. It's Overbach Farms. It's a small biointensive farm that's doing combining vegetables with fruit, but not the vegetables that you think, like tomatoes and peppers. They're actually using seasonality with their food production when it comes to things like asparagus and fruit. So I'm really excited about it, because it actually was something that I wanted to get into. I said, we don't have any asparagus here, and I saw this picture of their asparagus patch combined with all of their other fruit trees. And what they do is they plant asparagus as an understory crop, because asparagus makes an incredible understory crop. It's a perennial that actually does do great around other perennial fruit crops as well. That's how it kind of grows in nature. They prefer that kind of shade and the extra moisture that is found around tree roots. And so you have a really wonderful association there. Not to mention the perennials do well with other perennials, because they don't have the root disturbances of you kind of digging up and planting new things year after year. So you don't disturb the roots as much when they're planted around other perennials, which is great. And so that's what we're going to be doing. So Overbach Farms is doing a really incredible job of incorporating the asparagus with the fruit trees. And so that's kind of what I decided we were going to do as well. All right, so where you are standing right now is actually the beginning of our food forest here, or our future food forest. We're going to be actually establishing a small little patch here of fruit, because we have 5 fruit trees already, and we're going to be adding 3 more into our block here. And that's going to, that's really going to give us a nice, a really good patch of 8 fruit trees. We have a peach tree here, a cherry tree here. Over here will be a Asian pear. We have another peach here. And then we have our other Red Haven peach here. This will be a, this will actually be a sweet cherry. And then we have our Alberta peach over here. And then right here, we're going to choose another pear variety. We haven't decided on the pear variety yet, but because I'm allergic to apples, I figured we already have 2 apples. Let's not plant another one because it's just more that I can't enjoy. And Mrs. MIgardener was fine with that as well. So we're sticking with another pear variety. We just haven't picked yet. And so once we have this block of fruit trees, we're going to need some way to keep the grass down, because mowing around this stuff it's getting to be a bit tedious already with 5. So we need a way to suppress all the grass and the weeds that will come up. And we figured if we're gonna be getting mulch anyways for the garden, which we do need more mulch, let's mulch this and create it more of like a park style orchard where there's no grass, it's all wood chipped, and it's going to be really nice to just walk in here as the trees get nice and mature and get some chairs and sit out here and just sit amongst all the blooms. It'll be absolutely incredible in the spring. I cannot wait to see this thing in spring in full bloom. It's going to be just the most beautiful thing in the world. But once the mulch is down, what's going to happen is it's actually going to have a benefit. It's going to keep the soil much more damp. We really just needed it. At first, the idea was just so we didn't have to mow it all the time because it was a pain in the butt to mow it. But then the more we got thinking, we thought, holy smokes, you know, the soil will stay damp, the wood chips will break down, it'll amend the soil. The soil already has pretty good quality here. And, you know, it's going to have all these benefits to grow stuff. Why don't we actually plant something here? And we thought, well, yeah, but what? What are we going to plant here? Because we already have the main garden. You know, what else do we need? And I didn't want to plant things that would go crazy like strawberries. Those will spread all over the place, and I didn't want any more strawberries because we already have 2 full established beds there, and up at the cottage garden we already have 3 full established beds. More strawberries than we know what to do with. So strawberries were kind of out of the question. We didn't need any more raspberries because we're already planting our bramble patch as well as our already existing bramble patch. So we didn't need any more of those. And that's really where we ended up with asparagus, because we thought, hey, look, we're not going to have we're not going to have a use for these fruit trees until mid to late summer anyways. So this ground will really just be a mulched, pretty much mulched spot with nothing growing in it for a good half of the year, or a good half of the growing season. So let's actually plant some asparagus. And that's what we're going to be doing, is the asparagus is going to grow up in early spring around mid to late May. You'll get a bunch of asparagus here. You can harvest all of that. And then the really nice benefit that actually kicks in is that as the asparagus is harvested, that's just a bonus. You actually get a wonderful symbiotic relationship between asparagus and fruit trees. The beneficial fungi that colonizes the asparagus will also colonize fruit trees. And there's been found in many studies to be a net benefit between planting fruit trees and asparagus together. This is a wonderful association that mycorrhiza has with asparagus, and that's why you'll find asparagus commonly growing around the fruit trees. Also, the fruit trees do give that extra moisture to the asparagus. But then also what happens is as the asparagus grows up and the ferns grow up, the ferns get really nice and tall. But what'll happen is as those ferns grow up, it'll attract beneficial insects like ladybugs, butterflies, bees, and those will come in and help the garden, and that'll actually be a net benefit there. And also the additional net benefit is all of the nasty bugs like beetles and aphids and codling moths and things like that. They all hone in on the asparagus ferns and not on your fruit crops, which is just such an added benefit, that we're going to have so much biodiversity here that it's going to be helping each other in just a symbiotic way that nature would naturally do it. And we're going to end up having probably better fruit trees in the end anyways. Not to mention we're going to have delicious asparagus to harvest in the early spring. So we're just super excited about this idea, and that's why I wanted to come out to talk about it, to show you kind of what we're doing, because it'll probably be another, I'd say 3 or 4 weeks before we get that ready to go. We're going to start that project pretty soon. I'm actually going to rent a sod cutter for that, because it's quite a lot of space here to rip up, because I'm going to take up the sod first, put in topsoil all around, and then put the mulch on top of that, because I don't want to put the mulch right on top of this grass area. It'll just be, it'll be too much of a risk, let's put it that way. I just don't want to risk putting all this mulch down because we do have some pretty wicked weeds here. There's a lot of creeping Charlie, and that creeping Charlie, once it gets into the mulch, you're done. So, so I think we're just gonna tear it all up and then put the topsoil, or then put some good compost down and then some mulch, and then we'll plant the asparagus. So it'll be a project that we will bring you all along for, but I wanted to bring you at least along to show you what we had in the works, had in mind, so that if you do have something similar, you could also take what we're doing and implement it in your garden, because I think this will be something that a lot of you will see and say, man, I've got a space I can implement that. So yeah, it's just what we're doing, and it's nothing major, but I thought I'd bring you out here, show you what we're doing, and I'm really excited about it. So yeah, that's what we're doing. Oh, and also the varieties of asparagus that we're planting are an early purple and a Mary Washington asparagus. I've got 100 plants, and I think by the time we're all said and done, we'll have probably close to maybe about 120 plants, because I've got some started indoors as well, so it should be interesting. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow big or go home. We'll catch you all later. See ya. Bye.